Welcome to the 2022 Falkirk Model Railway Show, held at the Grangemouth Stadium over the 19th and 20th of November. In all, there were 28 layouts on display. I've split the videos into 3 parts, and this is the final part of 3. Each layout has its own YouTube chapter mark, which means if you expand the description, you will be able to jump to a specific layout. So you join me now at a layout called Canalside Ironworks. This is a 1/50th scale layout. I'm going to ask David now to explain a little bit more about the whole ethos behind the scale and everything else.
I'm very much in the industry, so I'm more of an industrial enthusiast than a railway modeller. So it was an industrial scene that I wanted to create, but you need movement to get invited to model railway exhibitions, so hence we've got a railway, but the majority of the model is industrial.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the scale and the choice of that for your layout?
The scale is 1/50th to the 1/50th scale, which is 6 millimetres to the foot. It's in between double O and O gauge. Double O is 4 millimetres, O gauge is 7 millimetres. And it isn't exactly a recognised scale in railway modelling as such, but there are 1 or 2 modellers such as myself that do this. American modellers, they're modelled to 1/48th scale, which is very similar to what I'm in here, you see. The chassis that I use are actually N gauge chassis, and the track is also N gauge, which is 9 millimetres between the rails.
So the trucks and locos are all hand built, are they?
Some are, well, quite a lot are hand built, quite a lot are just adapted from other whatever, and the actual, most of the rolling stock is kit built. You can find kits that are adaptable, not exactly in this scale, but they're adaptable and they'll look right. Some of the bodies that I actually used are chopped up double O bodies, such as the one that's sitting outside the workshop now. That's from the Triang range, which was, they're called Nelly and Polly and those. So you can often chop bodies up and make what you want, you see.
How big is it?
The layout itself, it's about 7 foot long, roughly.
And how many boards is that?
It's got 3 boards, but then there's also the 4th, which is the control panel.
And what about the scenery? Is that all hand built?
Yes, all the scenery is hand built. The windows and such as that, I purchased those, but all the buildings are scratch built. They're basically plywood, and it's plaster on plywood and then scribed. Each individual brick is painted whatever colour. I use around about 14 different colours, and then I dust it with artist chalk or weathering powders. The slates on the roofs, they're all pieces of card, all cut up and laid individually. And the walls that you can see is actual shale, which is all cut up and again laid one piece at a time.
A labour of love.
Yes. They haven't exactly locked me away yet, but it's not far away.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for your time. This OO gauge layout is Jack's Hill, exhibited by Michael Johnson. Jack's Hill is a micro layout taken from the design book by Carl Arendt. Whilst Michael was recovering from a broken leg, he decided to build a small layout to keep himself occupied. Jack's Hill is the result. It is the model of a coal loading plant set in the 1960s to the 1980s. An empty coal wagon is filled up with coal in the coaling plant and shunted into the right-hand building, where it is moved onto the other rail by a traverser. The wagon is shunted into the left-hand building, where it is removed and the coal tipped back into the coaling plant, ready to start all over again. The layout measures 2 feet 10 by 9 inches. All the buildings are scratch built, with modified kits for the coal loader. Track is Pico Code 100 with analogue control. Stock is a mix of Bachmann, Hornby and Dapol. My thanks to Michael for the information. So you join me a layout called Tamshooglie, which has been presented by Falkirk Model Railway Club, and I'm here with Ian, who's going to hopefully tell me a few things about it. So what was the inspiration behind the layout?
Well, we had a Thomas the Tank layout, and we wanted to rejuvenate it, you would say. So we come up with this plan. And the reason we called it that is you're not allowed to call it Thomas the Tank now. So we come up with this Tamshooglie idea. So we've got everything on it. A fun layout, because you've got Hogwarts Express running up and down. You've got Underground Erne going, well, it's called Underground Erne, but it was actually the station master was Underground Erne. But we call the coaches that. And then we have all the Thomas stuff running on the bottom.
How big is it?
It's 16 plus that bit, 17 feet long and about 4 foot wide.
And how many boards is that?
That's four boards.
What's the control? Is it DCC or DC?
No, it's just DC. Yes. Because we built it away, it's about 12 years ago, you know.
So how many operators do you need?
3 at the maximum. We can work it with 2 because we've got 4 controllers, but we like 3 people on it.
What's your track?
Double O gauge.
No, was it Pico?
It says Pico track, yes.
Yeah.
Pico. Fine scale.
And the points, are they Pico as well?
Yes, everything's Pico that's on it, yeah.
Your scenery, is that from kits or have you scratched?
Well, it's scratch built, yes. Everything. Scenery's all scratch built. Apart from like say, trees and things like that. But the actual scenery, yeah. Did that. Yeah.
Do you find it's very popular with the kids?
Oh yes, yes. Aye. That was one of the reasons we built it. We thought, well, we were going from a Thomas, which was a kid's layout, and we thought, let's keep it a fun layout.
Yeah.
Oh, aye, the kids love it.
And they're keeping an eye out for all the different locos that are coming around,
Yeah,
Hogwarts and...
Oh, aye, they can name them, every one of them. Yeah, oh yes.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
This HO gauge layout is Altdorf Ost, exhibited by Graham Arnold. With the reopening of a short link cord west of Altdorf, followed by the reopening of Altdorf Ost Bahnhof as part of an enlarged S-Bahn network, the area has seen a large increase in rail traffic. DB regional trains now offer a variety of destinations and run side by side with through freight traffic, now bypassing the congested central station. A local gravel quarry also provides some interesting movements due to the restricted track layout. The layout is 12 feet by 5 feet, comprising 3 scenic and 2 fiddle boards. Buildings are kit built from Heljan, Faller and Auhagen. Track is Pico 75 in the scenic section and Pico 100 in the remainder, with Pico points. Stock is a mixture of Pico, Rocco, Lilliput and Hobby Train. Control is DCC Gauge Master Prodigy Advanced. I'm here with Alan on Canal Way. It's an N gauge layout. I'm just going to ask him a few questions. What was the inspiration for the layout?
I think the inspiration was the fact that Falkirk has a number of canals, and we tried to give that kind of canal ethos, because a lot of them are based on industry or forestry or something. We thought, well, why don't we make it a canal theme? Simple as that.
What era is it?
Technically, as you can see, the end of steam and the introduction of diesel. So it's probably 60s.
Late 60s, early 70s.
It's just a single board, so it can go in the back of a car.
Great. Yeah. What is it, a DCC or?
No, it's just DC.
DC. Yeah.
It's the fact that most of us have only got DC locomotives. Well, there's 3 controllers. There's one for the main line, one for in here, and one for that loop and one for this loop. So it's a matter of juggling between 2 controllers at one point.
So I notice you don't have a fiddle yard, so you keep all the stock on the track at the same time, don't you?
Unfortunately.
Is that a problem?
I always, if I'm building it, I always have a fiddle yard.
Your scenery, is that kit built or scratch built?
Well, this is make calf, and the wee Nissen hut's make calf. There's no scratch built on this. Well, the only thing that's scratch built is that swing bridge, because the rest of it, as you can see, is kits.
Thank you very much.
Right, thanks for your interest.
Kinlochewe, modelled in OO gauge and presented by Falkirk Model Railway Club. The layout is based upon the West Highland Line station and track layout of Malay in northwest Scotland, after British Rail's implementation of Radio Electronic Tokenless Block RETB signalling in the mid-1980s. The operating period is from 1986 to 1989, with BR Blue and LLB locos and blue-grey coaches. Freight comprises timber, oil and infrastructure traffic. The model is built to a scale of 1 to 76, using Pico code 7500 gauge track. DCC control is used for train operation, with a conventional switch panel to operate the points and the electromagnetic uncouplers.
My name's Irwin Keith. This model was the concept of Stan Bierman, and unfortunately he died in August, so we've made a plate on his behalf. And his idea was that we build a distillery and yeast factory looking at the 80s, but we took each of the buildings that we thought we could put in this layout and drew them and made them exactly how they were, down to the stone colouring. And so therefore that is our kind of concept. They were 37s, 27s, used to come in and they used to shunt the yeast fans into, they did all the shunting from the main line into the yard. But we have made it so that we have special little engines that do the shunting. So there's a transfer sidings there.
How big is it?
How big is it? I think it's 14 feet.
How many boards is that?
There's 3 boards. Two boards and the transversal board.
And what are you running? Are you running DC or DCC?
We are running analog AC.
And where are they sourced from? There's like Bachmann, is it, or?
The source is from anywhere, whether it's Apple, Graham Farish, Bachmann.
And operating, how do you normally operate?
Operate with 2 operators. 1 yard with the yard, Bartos, and 1, I think that'll be Alec will do now, the main line. And the trains come from the transversal into the main line. We shunt back into the exchange sidings where you see the coal wagons and the brake van. They're transferred, operated by the main line, so, and then they leave the wagons etc. there, and what happens is the yard engine comes and collects them and shunts them where they are.
I'm Mark, I'm a member of Scottish Modellers, and basically we're a group in Scotland. We all build our own layouts. So this is my layout of Rannoch, which is set on the West Highland Line in Scotland. I chose this location simply because I started collecting a load of stock that was suitable for it, and I saw a magazine article set in about 2004 of the sleeper trains running up to Fort William, and I had a look, started researching the line and came across Rannoch, and it just appealed to me with the interesting buildings and the footbridge and the viaduct as well, and I thought it'd make into a nice scene for a model railway. So I set about finding photos online and marked out the track plan onto some lining paper and wallpaper originally, and then just got to work building it. So the hardest challenge for me was having to scratch build all the buildings, because there's nothing you can buy ready to plant in place. So I did that. It's all laid with Code 100 track, but once it's painted and ballasted, it looks quite effective, and it's been really reliable over the last 10 years since I started building the layout. I'm using digital control, and I use the Gagemaster Prodigy advanced system. So I've had that since 2007, and it's been really reliable, so it's good. All the trains are sound fitted as well, which just adds an extra element, a bit more fun to it as well. So I decided to set the year around sort of 2005, 2007, where the 37s in EWS era were still running on the line, albeit in quite battered condition, just before the sort of 67s and 66s really took over. So it's got quite an interesting mix of stock, of freight and passenger on the line. So this layout took me about 3 years to build, on and off. The main bits was just doing all the scratch building for the buildings, but you can pick bits up, work on one bit and then move on to other aspects of it. So about 3 years to get it to the state it's in.
Did you have any challenges while you were building it?
Yeah, the footbridge kit, it was the first time I'd done an etch brass kit, built one of those, so I had to quite quickly learn how to solder a kit like that together using solder paint, but it was actually a really, really good project to do, and I quite enjoyed doing it in the end.
So you join me on the Elgin layout, and I'm here with Ted, who's going to hopefully answer a few questions for me. So what was the inspiration behind the layout?
I wanted a modern image layout where I could do a little bit of shunting of freight stock, and I looked around, and really up in the northeast of Scotland, particularly at Elgin, there was quite a lot of freight traffic in the 80s, and frighteningly, I say modern image. When I built the layout, it was sort of in the late 90s, so it wasn't that long after the era that I'm modelling. 22 years on, it's sort of quite historic, a lot of it. But yes, it was the fact that they had whisky traffic and logs and lots of other quite interesting stuff coming in and out of Elgin. So yeah, that was the inspiration for that.
How big is it?
It's 10 foot 6 by 8 foot, I think. Yeah.
And how many boards is that?
There's 6 boards. So there's 2 scenic ones, the 2 front ones, and looking at it the left-hand side from the front, and then the rest is just all fiddle yard.
What about your scenery? Is it scratch built or kit or what?
It's mainly scratch built. There's the odd kit that's been modified, but the Great North of Scotland Railway and the modern BR station, both are prototypes and had to be scratch built, yes.
And track, what's that?
Tracks, it's code 55 in the general on the scenic sections, and code 80 just for meanness in the fiddle yards. It's analog, it's DC, yes. I think the benefit of DCC wasn't really obvious when I first built the layout. We have 2 people operating, one on the main line, which is single track from just beyond the station, so you've actually got that discipline of having to think about what you're doing all the time, rather than just running a train round and round in both directions, and one person shunting the freight yard, and that it keeps you quite busy and quite interested for a weekend actually.
Thank you very much. Okay. So you join me on Hillpark TMD, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm here with Andy, who's...
Well, this all started in lockdown, and I started doing it myself because my son couldn't come and help me either. So we just sat and worked it out. We had an old temporary sort of track laid, and then we designed it, and we had spare bits of the Elgin motor power depot that they make. So I built a single road one, and that actually turned it on to what we've built now.
How big is it?
It's 16 feet long by approximately 18 inches wide.
And how many boards is that?
There is 4 all told. There's 3 scenic boards and 1 fiddle yard board.
What's it controlled by? Is it DCC or DC?
It's DCC. We use the Gagemaster one. That's it, yeah.
And what's your track?
The track is standard Pico code. window coating.
And pico points as well.
Pico points, yeah, and it's seat point motors, worked by the stud and probe.
Your scenics, what are they? Are they sort of kit built or scratch built?
No, well, these buildings, the motor power depot, that was, like I said, that was an extension kit we bought for the main depot unit, and I didn't need them, so I turned it into a single road. The tanks, the big petrol tank, that's made in Manchester set up. I got it all bought, ready built, so I cheated on there. And the other buildings are background ones.
What about your stock? Where are you getting that from?
Stock are Elgin, some of them are kit built.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
You're welcome.